We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
The death toll from the novel coronavirus surged past 900 in mainland China, overtaking global fatalities in the 2002 to 2003 SARS epidemic.
Grieving relatives of 29 people murdered by a rogue soldier in Thailand mourn as questions multiply over how and why the unprecedented shooting spree happened.
And South Korean black comedy Parasite makes movie history at the Oscars, becoming the first non-English language film to win the Best Picture award, Hollywood's biggest.
25 seconds into flight. Chamber pressure on the SRB looks good.
And solar orbiter probe launches from Florida.
And at 35 seconds in.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. The death toll from the novel coronavirus surged past 900 in mainland China on Monday, overtaking global fatalities in the 2002 to 2003 SARS epidemic, even as the World Health Organization said the outbreak appeared to be stabilizing. With 91 more people dying in Hubei, the province at the center of the outbreak, the toll is now higher than the 774 killed worldwide by the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS. At least 39,800 people in China have now been infected by the virus, believed to have emerged late last year in Hubei's capital, Wuhan, where residents are struggling to get daily supplies. Although the World Health Organization has said there are tentative signs the epidemic is stabilizing, the agency's chief warned there may be more infections abroad in people who have never traveled to China.
In addition, there has been a stabilization in the number of cases reported from Hubei, and we're in a sort of a 4-day stable period where the disease or the number of reported cases hasn't advanced, and that's good news and may reflect the impact of the control measures that have been put in place.
Millions of people in China were returning to work Monday after an extended holiday designed to slow the spread of the virus. There were some signs Monday of the country beginning to make a return to normality. Roads in Beijing and Shanghai had significantly more traffic than in recent days, and the southern city of Guangzhou said it would start to resume normal public transport from Monday. However, tens of millions of people in Hubei province were not returning to work, as the province, the epicenter of the outbreak, remained under lockdown. The American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai said 60% of its member companies were planning mandatory work-from-home policies. State media reported that passenger numbers on the Beijing subway was down by about 50% Monday compared to a normal work day. Large shopping malls in the capital were deserted.
Around 60 more people aboard the quarantine Diamond Princess cruise ship moored off Japan have been diagnosed with novel coronavirus, national broadcaster NHK said Monday, bringing the total number of infected to about 130. Other local media also reported the new cases, but health ministry officials declined to comment. The Diamond Princess has been in quarantine since arriving off the Japanese coast early last week after the virus was detected in a former passenger who got off the ship last month in Hong Kong. When the boat arrived off Japan, authorities initially tested nearly 300 people for the virus of the 3,711 on board, gradually evacuating dozens who were infected to local medical facilities. The ship is expected to stay in quarantine until February 19, 14 days after the isolation period began.
The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs confirmed 4 more Filipinos on board the quarantined cruise ship in Japan tested positive for the 2019 novel coronavirus acute respiratory disease. The agency said the 4 who were among 6 newly confirmed cases of the virus are now being treated in a hospital. It now brings to 5 the number of positive cases. The agency reported last week the first Filipino 2019 nCoV case inside the ship. In a recent statement, Embassy's Deputy Chief of Mission, Robespierre Bolivar, said the Filipino is responding positively to treatment. There are more than 500 Filipinos still on board the vessel, which is docked off the port of Yokohama, Japan, since February 4. The embassy is also closely coordinating with Japanese authorities and is in constant communication with the Filipinos still inside the ship to provide them assistance. The Japanese Health Ministry said the ship would remain under the mandatory 14-day quarantine period until February 19.
Thousands of people stranded aboard a cruise ship in Hong Kong for 5 days were allowed to disembark on Sunday after its 1,800 crew tested negative for the deadly new coronavirus. Health authorities in the semi-autonomous Asian financial hub said the crew and a similar number of passengers had been released from a quarantine imposed because of fears some staff could have contracted the deadly virus on a previous voyage and passed it on. The World Dream carried 3 Chinese passengers to Vietnam between January 19 and 24 who were later found to be infected with the SARS-like coronavirus, which has killed more than 800 people in China since it emerged in December. The government grounded the ship on its arrival in Hong Kong Wednesday while tests were carried out on the crew, but said the passengers need not undergo examination as they had no contact with the 3 sick holidaymakers on the January trip. Hong Kong on Saturday began enforcing a 14-day quarantine period on all people arriving from mainland China in a fresh bid to curb the spread of the virus. The city's health minister on Sunday morning said 468 people had so far been ordered to stay at home, in hotel rooms, or at a government quarantine camp since the policy took effect.
The head of the World Health Organization has warned that confirmed cases of coronavirus being transmitted by people who have never traveled to China could be the tip of the iceberg. Take a look. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus' remarks come as members of a WHO-led international expert mission flew to China on Monday to help coordinate a response to the outbreak that has so far infected more than 40,000 people and killed 908 in the country. There have been some concerning instances of onward #2019 nCoV spread from people with no travel history to China. Dr. Tedros tweeted Sunday using the virus's provisional scientific name. He said the detection of a small number of cases may indicate more widespread transmission in other countries. In short, he said we may only be seeing the tip of the iceberg. While the spread of the virus outside China appeared to be slow, Dr. Tedros warned it could accelerate. The WHO-led mission to China is being headed up by Bruce Aylward, a veteran of previous health emergencies, according to Dr. Tedros. Aylward oversaw the WHO's 2014 to 2016 response to the Ebola epidemic in West Africa.
UAE Ministry of Health and Prevention's Assistant Undersecretary for Health Centers and Clinics meets with a recovered 73-year-old Chinese coronavirus patient in Abu Dhabi, UAE.
دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة قدمت الخدمات الطبية للمصابين، واليوم نعلن عن شفاء أول حالة وخلوها من المرض بعد أن أجرينا جميع الفحوصات الطبية.
The Emirates news agency WAM accompanied Consul General Li Shuhang of China and the ministry's Assistant Undersecretary for Health Centers and Clinics, Dr. Hussein Al-Rand, who visited the grandmother, congratulating her on her full recovery. Gulf News reported that they spoke to a specialist in internal medicine, Dr. Smita Moraletharan from Astor Hospitals in Al Gusais, to find out how patients can be cured in general. The simple answer, they said, is through her own immune system. Dr. Moraletharan told Gulf News if you are healthy, you could just pass it off as a cough or cold. There's no treatment or cure, just support to help your immune system clear it. With more than 40,000 cases and about 900 fatalities worldwide to date, however, she explains that it needs containing to protect those who have weak immune system and those who are predisposed to falling sick easily.
Labor Secretary Silvestro Bello III announced that all Filipino repatriates from countries with confirmed cases of the 2019 novel coronavirus acute respiratory disease will be receiving financial, livelihood, and employment assistance from the government. Let's listen in.
Aking handa. Well, when we talk about repatriates, we would like to inform you that the Department of Labor is ready with its reintegration program. But this refers to yung mga OFWs, yung mga OFWs na i-repatriate natin from China, from Hong Kong, from Macau, and probably even from Japan. We have a package of repatriation program. Number one, of course, is immediate financial assistance. When they come here, no question asked. As long as you're an OFW, active member of OWA, we give you financial assistance. Then, aside from that, we also have yung livelihood assistance. Livelihood assistance. And then, I'm sure most of them may also consider another employment opportunity. So we have also a alternative employment abroad na naman yan. That's why we have been busy establishing labor relations with countries such as Canada, Russia, Czechoslovakia, Croatia, and then even China. Even China. In fact, I'm meeting with some of the officials of China anytime this week regarding the possibility of establishing labor relation on unskilled, yung tinatawag nating household service workers. So, yun po, meron din kaming tinatawag na livelihood assistance if they want to go to business rather than get another employment, we can provide them. Ang minimum assistance namin dyan ay 20,000. Walang yan, hindi yan pautang, bigay yan, assistance yan. But they can go as high as 1 million depending on anong business na papasukan nila. Pero ito naman, interest-free. And then finally, this is a long-term assistance sa ating mga OFW. This is the so-called scholarship program for the children of our OFWs. Basta gusto mag-aral ng ating mga OFWs, we will provide them. Actually, there is no basis yet to say that the employment of these returning OFWs has been affected because we got verified information from our labor attaché in Hong Kong that the employers of our overseas workers there granted extension of vacation of our OFW. So, as to a possible unemployment, wala po tayo dyan. But having said that, we immediately gave financial assistance of 10,000 per overseas worker. And as of Friday, last week, we already extended 35 million pesos to 3,500 OFWs. But that is also growing every day. That's why, if you will recall, Secretary Martin, I advocated during our last cabinet meeting that the travel ban should be lifted. But in deference to Secretary Pinco, he's more concerned about the health of our overseas workers. The decision was to proceed with the travel ban. At tuloy pa yung travel ban. But the Secretary Pinco, Secretary Duque said that they will have an observation period of 2 weeks. Sabi niya, kung lalala, then it stays. But if it improves, may sabihin hindi naman lumalala yung coronavirus problem, baka ma-recommend niya, baka ma-recommend niya ang lifting of the travel ban.
Pag lumala po. Okay. So you're saying wala pong maapektuhan kahit isang OFW na bound for China, Hong Kong, Macau because of the travel ban?
I'm talking about Macau and Hong Kong because in China we don't have a polo office there.
There are at least 3,500 OFWs from China, Hong Kong, and Macau who have been prohibited from leaving the country due to the temporary travel ban. However, he said the number could reach as high as 10,000 to 15,000.
Parasite makes history in winning the Oscar for Best Picture as the first non-English language film to score the coveted award.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite. 지금 이 순간에 뭔가 굉장히 의미.
I feel like a very opportune moment in history is happening right now.
I really want to thank our Korean film audience, our moviegoers, who's been really supporting all our movies and never hesitated to give us straightforward opinion on what they feel like their movies. And without you, our Korean film audience, we are not here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The South Korean film beat heavy competition from films including the heavily favored war epic 1917 to take home its fourth statuette of the night. The movie snapped up 4 Academy Awards on Sunday, becoming the first non-English language film to take home Best Picture honors, the most coveted prize in Hollywood. Its Best Original Screenplay Oscar was the first Asian win in that category and the first for a Korean in any category. It comes after the 100th anniversary of Korean cinema in 2019. Parasite also snapped up the prize for Best International Feature Film, as was widely expected. The vicious satire about social inequality had already scooped up the Palme d'Or in Cannes last year and the award for Best Foreign Language Film at last month's Golden Globes, also firsts for a South Korean movie.
And Joaquin Phoenix wins his first Oscar for his leading role in the movie Joker, besting a packed field of nominees that included Antonio Banderas, Leonardo DiCaprio, Adam Driver, and Jonathan Pryce. Take a look.
Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
This is the first Oscar and fourth nomination.
Stop. Hi. And I think that when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and to the environment. Now, I've been a scoundrel in my life. I've been selfish. I've been cruel at times, hard to work with, and ungrateful. But so many of you in this room have given me a second chance.
His first Academy Award follows
Renee Zellweger's Best Actress Oscar on Sunday for her portrayal of Judy Garland on a late-in-life comeback tour in Judy marks a stunning renaissance for her own wide-ranging career.
And this definitely was not what was on my mind when we started this experience, you know. But in my mind, when I go back to those couple of years that we shared, celebrating her and telling this story and building toward it, boy, that's the blessing, isn't it? Yeah.
Scarlett.
Oh, please. I'm Judy.
I'm very sorry, but your suite has been released.
What do you mean, released? Where exactly has it gone?
Your account was in arrears.
Clang, clang, clang with the trolley.
Mama, please don't go to sleep now.
No, these are the other ones.
Sing, sing, sing.
The kids need a home, Judy.
I know what kids need. They need their mother.
Can't have the world's greatest entertainer out here without Frank.
Frank Sinatra's here?
Frank is great, but he is no Judy Garland.
I don't have a home. I can't even
Arriving in swinging London in the winter of 1968 to perform a 5-week sold-out run at the Talk of the Town nightclub. Although the singer was only 46, Garland had been a movie star for 3 decades thanks to The Wizard of Oz. The Hollywood lifestyle and 4 failed marriages had taken their toll, as highlighted in Zellweger's visceral performance. But Judy sees Garland throw herself into the concerts in defiance of her own fading health.
I want to stay put.
I'm coming back for them. Lie on now.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back. Hundreds of Thais held an evening vigil Sunday for the 30 victims of an unprecedented mass shooting carried out by a soldier. Take a look. Sharpshooters killed the gunman on Sunday morning after a 17-hour ordeal, including a night of firefights and terrifying dashes for mall exits by shoppers trapped in the Terminal 21 Mall in Nakton, Ratchasima, also known as Korat. The provincial governor told reporters that the death toll stood at 30, with dozens injured. The dead include civilians, one of them a 13-year-old boy, and security forces going after the rogue soldier who was upset over a debt dispute, according to Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. The attacker, identified as Sergeant Major Jakrapan Thoma, used a stolen M60 machine gun and rifles from one of Thailand's largest barracks, as well as a military Humvee to carry out the attack. Prime Minister Prayut said the gunman overpowered security at the barracks arsenal and that carelessness was not a factor. The bloodshed began Saturday afternoon when he shot 3 people, among them at least 1 soldier, a senior officer's house, and then at the nearby army barracks before driving a military vehicle to the town center. There, the gunman used the stolen weapons to unleash carnage in the town center. Throughout the day, he posted images of himself and wrote several posts on his Facebook page. In one Facebook video, since deleted, the assailant, wearing an army helmet, filmed from an open-top jeep saying, quote, "I'm tired, I can't pull my finger anymore," as he made a trigger symbol with his hand. There were also photos of a man in a ski mask holding a pistol. Thailand's Digital Economy Minister Punchi Punkanta said he contacted regional executives at the social media giant to report the activity. A Facebook spokesperson said the gunman's accounts were removed and it will work around the clock to remove any violating content related to this attack as soon as we become aware of it. Thailand has one of the highest rates of gun ownership in the world, and several shootings at courthouses last year renewed concern about gun violence.
Storm Ciara caused travel chaos on Monday, severely disrupting commutes and grounding hundreds of flights as swaths of Europe were left without power by torrential rain and winds of up to 180 kilometers per hour. That also caused flash flooding and the cancellation of sporting fixtures. In one of the most violent storms for years, 1 man died and another was reported missing in southern Sweden when their boat capsized, while 3 people were seriously injured in Germany by falling trees and branches. Parts of northern France were put on orange alert and 130,000 homes had electricity cut off. The Netherlands closed one of its big storm surge barriers as the tempest approached on Sunday night. Police said it caused Monday morning traffic jams over 600 kilometers of roads. Around 220 flights were canceled during the morning at Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport, Europe's 3rd busiest, most destined for other European cities. Around 240 never took off on Sunday. Another man was injured by a tree in the Czech Republic, where winds reached up to 180 kilometers per hour on the country's highest mountain, Snežka. The storm left 100,000 without power there, and even toppled over a truck. Tiny Luxembourg canceled school classes and morning rush hour traffic ground to a halt in Brussels due to street closures and flooding. Britain began a cleanup after bearing the brunt of one of the most violent and destructive storms in years. Transport was disrupted across the country with planes and trains canceled or delayed. The highest wind speed recorded was 150 kilometers per hour in the northwest Wales village of Aberdaron.
Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, the woman widely seen as German Chancellor Angela Merkel's choice to succeed her, will not lead her CDU party into next year's election, according to a party source. Take a look. Known as AKK, Karen Bauer took over from Merkel as CDU chairwoman and presumptive chancellor candidate in 2018 after a string of regional election batterings for the conservative bloc, but has now said she will not be a candidate for the chancellery. She made a surprise announcement after telling a Crunch CDU meeting that the center-right party had an unresolved relationship with the far-right AFD party and the far left. It comes also after an election debacle in the state of Thuringia in which regional CDU lawmakers went rogue and voted in the same camp as MPs from the AFD to oust a far-left state premier. AKK will by the summer organize the process to find the chancellor candidate, further prepare the party for the future, and then give up the leadership, according to the source. The source also added that Merkel wanted her to remain as defense minister, the post she has held since July. Germany's next national elections must take place by autumn next year, although the fractious coalition between the CDU, its Bavarian CSU allies, and the center-left Social Democrats, or SPD, may not hold until then. The CDU has been in turmoil ever since the Thuringia fiasco, which broke a political taboo in Germany where mainstream parties have always ruled out cooperating with the AFD.
Nationalist party Sinn Féin won the popular vote in Ireland's general election. Ballot counts revealed Sunday with the one-time political wing of the IRA disrupting a duopoly of center-right parties which have historically controlled the Republic. After all, 39 constituencies around Ireland were tallied. Sinn Féin received 24.5% of the first preference vote, outstripping the opposition Fianna Fáil party on 22.2% and incumbent Prime Minister Leo Varadkar's governing Fine Gael party on 20.9%. Ireland operates on a single transferable vote system, and Sinn Féin ran a slate of just 42 candidates for the 159 seats contested, meaning its strong performance may not result in it becoming the biggest party in Ireland's next parliament. But the left-wing party started celebrating its surge after campaigning on issues of healthcare and housing.
It's a big statement of change. It is a big statement that this is no longer a two-party system. It's a statement that people want a different type of government and that people have great confidence in us, and I say that with all humility, and I deeply, deeply appreciate that. The best outcome is a government without Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, so that's the first thing that I want to test, whether or not that is possible. I also have consistently said that I will talk to and listen to everybody. I think that's what grown-ups do. I think that's what democracy demands. I do not believe it is a sustainable position for either Leo Varadkar or Micheál Martin to say that they will not speak to us, representatives of such a sizable section of the Irish electorate.
Counting is expected to continue on Monday, with analysts saying it could take 2 to 3 days before full results are known. Sinn Féin's flagship policy is uniting Ireland and the British territory of Northern Ireland, reversing the partition of the island of Ireland in 1921. Prime Minister Leo Varadkar reiterated his campaign position that he would not form a coalition with Sinn Féin because of its past links to the Irish Republican Army paramilitary.
And what I said during the campaign, and what my party said in the campaign, wasn't a tactic or a strategy, it was what we honestly believed. And for us, a coalition with Sinn Féin is not an option. But we are willing to talk to other parties about the possibility of forming a government, one that can lead the country forward for the next 5 years. You know, I think we need to bear in mind that in this election Sinn Féin has done very well, and I want to congratulate them and their candidates on doing as well as they did. But bear in mind we've three parties that got roughly the same share of the vote, roughly the same number of seats, and we all have a mandate, and everyone's mandate needs to be respected. But in order to form a government together, you know, nobody can be forced into some sort of forced marriage or forced coalition on occasion. I understand what she said is that she's going to seek to form a coalition of the left-wing parties that doesn't include Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. I'm not sure if that's possible on the numbers, so I think it's going to be a number of weeks or a number of months before before we're in a position to form a government.
In other news, soldiers entered El Salvador's parliament as the president demanded lawmakers approve a $109 million loan to equip the military and police to fight against violent gangs. Nayib Bukele called an extraordinary weekend session of parliament to ask it to approve a loan that has pitted the executive against lawmakers in a country with one of the world's highest murder rates. Now, before his entry, armed police and soldiers with rifles and wearing body armor entered the chamber and stood guard, a move not seen since the end of the country's civil war in 1992. If these good-for-nothings lawmakers do not approve the territorial control plan this week, we will call them to hold a session again next Sunday. This is according to President Bukele in a speech to supporters outside the parliament. Bukele, who took office last June, has pledged to tackle gang violence and intends using the loan to better equip the military and police. But lawmakers refused to sit for an extra session over the weekend to debate the issue. Bukele also called on supporters to gather outside parliament and help pressure the politicians.
Pues estos delincuentes de la Asamblea Legislativa no quieren ni siquiera aprobar dinero que no es de ellos, sino que es del pueblo salvadoreño, para garantizar la seguridad del pueblo salvadoreño. Cuando los funcionarios rompan el orden constitucional, el pueblo salvadoreño tiene el derecho a la insurrección para remover a esos funcionarios y restablecer el orden constitucional.
The European Space Agency will embark upon one of its most ambitious projects to date, Sunday, when its solar orbiter probe launches from Florida's Cape Canaveral bound for the Sun. The craft, developed jointly with NASA, is expected to provide scientists with unprecedented insights into the Sun's atmosphere, its winds, and magnetic fields. It will also garner the first ever images of our star's uncharted polar regions. After a flyby of Venus and Mercury, the satellite is set to hit a maximum speed of 245,000 kilometers per hour and settle into orbit around 42 million miles from the Sun's surface. Packed on board will be 10 state-of-the-art instruments to record myriad observations that scientists hope will unlock some clues about what drives solar winds and flares. Ann Packras, mission director, said the experiment was designed to understand how the Sun creates and controls the heliosphere, the giant bubble of plasma that surrounds the solar system. Solar winds and flares emit billions of highly charged particles that impact planets, including Earth. But the phenomena remain poorly understood despite decades of research.
In other news, New York proclaims January 13 an Iglesia ni Cristo Day. Abigail Mayo has more.
City Hall. For New York City, this building serves as a seat of the municipal government. It has also served as a backdrop for significant events that have happened throughout the city's history. Today, the Iglesia ni Cristo received recognition from the Office of the Mayor for its long-standing commitment to service for the welfare of the people of New York.
On behalf of the Mayor of the City of New York, we would like to present this proclamation.
We are deeply appreciative of the ways that this church has honored New York's core values through its generosity and dedication to service. And as you come together to celebrate this milestone anniversary, I am proud to join in recognizing the incredible legacy of Iglesia ni Cristo and its efforts to lead the way to a better tomorrow.
So now, therefore, I, Bill de Blasio, Mayor of the City of New York, do hereby proclaim Monday,
January 13, 2020,
in the City of New York as Iglesia ni Cristo Day.
Today, another milestone happened in the Church of Christ, because today, January 13, 2020, marks the fourth proclamation that the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation have received.
Through the charitable arm of the Iglesia ni Cristo, the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation has conducted outreach events around the world to communities in need or struck by calamity.
We endured like a really serious mass shooting in Brownsville, and Felix Y. Manalo Foundation did an amazing job at just stepping in and really helping us in a deep way. They came in and gave tens of thousands of dollars to community groups and organizations that have already been doing a lot of work on the ground, and that was something that almost no other entity really did at the time.
We're always just really thankful to any groups that do a lot of good.
For members of the Iglesia ni Cristo, it was a chance to witness a historic occasion at City Hall.
I decided to come here because this is a very inspiring event of the Iglesia ni Cristo. I really can say this is God's work.
I came to support the church, and I'm so excited that we've been recognized for the great work that we do around the world. So I think it's amazing that the city recognized that and wants to honor us.
The recognition that we receive from the city is something that we value, because it shows that we are able to help the community.
This is what our executive minister is always saying, that the Iglesia ni Cristo is always in partnership with the government when it comes to fighting against poverty. And this is also what was mentioned by Brother Glicerio B. Santos Jr. He said that in this year, 2020, there will be bigger and better aid to humanity that the Iglesia ni Cristo will be doing.
Reporting from City Hall in New York City, Abigail Mayo, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Abigail. More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood.
Markets across the Asia-Pacific were in the red on Monday, with investors worried about the impact of the China coronavirus outbreak on the global economy. The virus has killed more than 900 people, infected 40,000 across mainland China, and spread to more than 24 countries in what has been termed a global health emergency. It has also jolted major supply chains for everything from food and household supplies to car and electronic parts. Tokyo's benchmark Nikkei 225 index closed to 0.6% down, while Hong Kong pared some losses, ending the day 0.6% lower after tanking 1.1% at the open. Elsewhere, Sydney slipped 0.1%, Seoul was down 0.5%, and Singapore was 0.7% lower. Shanghai, however, rebounded after opening 0.5% lower and was up 0.5% at the close. Taipei, Jakarta, and Mumbai were also underwater. Investors around the world have been watching with concern as China, the world's second largest economy, battles the novel coronavirus, which emerged at the end of last year in the central city of Wuhan. The domestic impact was reflected in China's inflation figures released Monday, which showed the highest rise in consumer prices in more than 8 years, with food prices spiking more than 20%.
In other news, Malacanang denied that it was involved in Solicitor General Jose Calida's move to ask the Supreme Court to nullify the franchise of broadcast media giant ABS-CBN. Take a look.
None that I know of. What I know of the President's style is, if you want to do something in relation to your job, do it. Let the law take its course. Palagi nang sinasabi niya sa lahat. Now, with respect to the, as you said, the President's feelings about ABS-CBN, you must remember that there is a basis for his expression of displeasure. What? He was a victim of fraud. And when he expresses that, that expression falls within the freedom of expression, which we cannot deprive a president of, given that all citizens are entitled to that. But it doesn't mean, nor has it anything to do with the petition filed by the Solicitor General, because that is the job of the Sol-Gen. And if he does not do that, then he would be charged with dereliction of duty.
However, ABS-CBN said it has done nothing wrong. In a statement, ABS-CBN said that Calida's move was an effort to shut the company down to the, quote, serious prejudice of millions of Filipinos relying on the network for news, entertainment, and public service. The Solicitor General's petition filed with the nation's top court alleges ABS-CBN violated provisions of its 25-year operating franchise. According to the Office of the Solicitor General, ABS-CBN has been broadcasting for a fee, something which is beyond the scope of its legislative franchise. It also accused the company of abusing its privileges when it launched and operated a pay-per-view channel in ABS-CBN TV Plus, the KBO channel, without prior approval or a permit from the National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC. The move also comes as the broadcaster was working publicly and privately to convince lawmakers to renew its franchise, which expires on March 30.
Fresh fears of accelerating damage to the planet's ice sheets and sea level rise have been fueled by confirmation from the UN's weather agency that the Antarctic likely saw a new temperature record of 18.3 degrees Celsius on Thursday. In Geneva, spokesperson Claire Nullis from the World Meteorological Organization said that the record reading taken in the north of the continent would be considered unusual even during the current warmer summer months.
It's among the fastest warming regions of the planet. We hear a lot about the Arctic, but this particular part of the Antarctic Peninsula is warming very quickly. Over the past 50 years, it's warmed almost 3 degrees Celsius. The Argentine research base, which is called Esperanza, it's on the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. It set a new record temperature yesterday of 18.3 degrees Celsius, which is, not a figure that you would normally associate with Antarctica, even in summertime. This beat the former record of 17.5 degrees C, which was set back in 2015. The amount of ice lost annually from the Antarctic ice sheet increased at least six-fold between 1979 and 2017. Some 87% of glaciers along the west coast of the Antarctic Peninsula have retreated in the last 50 years, with most of these showing an accelerated retreat in the past 12 years.
Concern is particularly high over the main glacier, tributaries to the West Antarctic ice sheet, in particular the Pine Island Glacier, where two large rifts that were first spotted in early 2019 have each grown to some 20 kilometers long. Its immense ice sheet is up to 4.8 kilometers thick and contains 90% of the world's fresh water, enough to raise sea level by around 60 meters were it to melt.
The Canada-USA rivalry series marked the first time since the Canadian and United States women's national hockey teams took to the ice at Rogers Arena, dating back to the gold medal game at the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympic Games. Here's Eagle News correspondent Anthony Sevilla for the report.
One of the greatest rivalries in hockey, and arguably in all of sports, reignited as the Canadian and United States women's national hockey teams faced off for the fourth time in this Canada-US rivalry series. The United States bounced back in this game to defeat Canada 3-1 at Rogers Arena. This also marked the first time that Canada and the United States women's teams faced off at Rogers Arena since the gold medal game back in the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics, where Canada came out on top to claim the gold. Few members from that national team that settled for silver back in 2010 were present in this roster, including forward Hillary Knight.
Yeah, a lot of it's from 2010. Had some back and forth after our gold medal loss with the fans up here, so definitely take that to heart. And they were pretty quiet the entire game, but happy we could get a win and go back to home soil and play in front of our home crowd. Yeah, so, you know, it's salt from 10 years ago, but obviously a celebration there's a lot of passion, and I think that's what brings out the best of us, both teams. Great competitive environment. We could play these guys 100 days out of the year and it would still be the same, and I think that's what the fans feel, and they feel that fabric of the competitive rivalry. Obviously, you know, with games we technically won, but it doesn't matter. There's a lot of pride on the line when these two nations duel it out.
There's a few players in that room that were here in 2010, and you know, we all watched it who weren't there, and so yeah, there's definitely a revenge factor for those guys and for this group coming into this building. Yeah, there definitely was some leadership that spoke up between periods, and it was an important piece to our success. And you know, there's some people in the room that never lost an Olympic gold medal, which is awesome, but there are a lot that have. So it was a great moment to hear from those guys for sure.
Despite falling short, the support for Canada was evident, as the arena was high energy throughout the entire game. Many youth hockey players, both girls and boys, came out to support Canada's women's national team. Jocelyn Larocque and Emerence Moshmeyer from Canada gave their thoughts on the support from the fans and the feeling being part of the growth of women's hockey in Canada.
It's always such an honor to play in front of a home crowd, and it's something that I know myself and my teammates, we look forward to. And, you know, the energy, you know, how loud they were, it's hard to put into words. It's amazing, and I feel so proud to, you know, be from such an amazing country that supports us and loves us, and we love them.
Yeah, the fans have been incredible. You know, even the other day in Victoria, just being on the bench, you know, you get chills listening to the fans cheering, you know, right after O Canada, and it's an incredible feeling. And today, the fans brought the exact same energy, just what I expected. You know, the last time that the women's hockey was here in Vancouver, it was the Olympics, and I got to watch that on TV. And you know, you have big expectations for the crowd, and they met it completely. So. Yeah, it's awesome that we have the opportunity to play in front of so many female hockey players and even, you know, young boys, and so it's important, especially right now in this transition time that female hockey is in. Any kind of time we have to showcase and, you know, reach out to the youth, it's important, and the impact goes a long way.
Canada and the United States will play the fifth and final game of the rivalry series at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. From Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, always one with 25.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, and
we're one with 25.